donation for transplantation and research. We are excited to have you join us for this very important film premiere. Following the film, we will have a panel discussion with some of the participants of the documentary. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge Ayanna Anderson, former team member of Donor Network West. She has moved on to a dream job as head of diversity, inclusion, belonging at Highwire PR. However, this film would not have been realized without Ayanna's vision, passion, and tireless work to open the lines of communication with the Black community to continue to dispel the myths about organ, eye, and tissue donation and to rebuild trust with the Black community. I applaud her efforts, and I'm excited to finally bring her vision to life. So without further ado, please enjoy We Speak Life.
So, are you registered to be an organ or tissue donor?
Actually, no, I'm not.
Can I ask you why?
Why would I? I was born with these organs, so I'm gonna die with these organs.
This is my son, Maurice. He was my firstborn. They always said that he was gonna make it big in baseball. And they told me he had been shot in the head. And the doctor told me that he was brain dead. My baby was laying there, his face or nothing was swollen. He was just laying there looking like he was in perfect peace. I didn't know what brain dead was. The doctor came over there, he said, "Arlinda, your son's vital organs are just great. Will you consider donating his organs?" And I immediately got an attitude because he didn't explain to me what donating the organs would do for other people. He didn't explain to me that my son could live on in somebody else's body. I felt like he just want to kill Maurice.
African Americans suffer from a number of health disparities in disproportionate numbers: high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes. The end result of this is that, left untreated, these health challenges can cause one to need a life-saving transplant. And if you were to need a life-saving transplant, chances are you would wait many, many years for your gift of life. If you did not get your gift in time, you would die waiting.
We need to change the narrative.
It gets really deep when I think about like just us and healthcare in general. Like this is bigger. The organ, tissue, and eye donation is a piece, but it's just really the cultural piece of our love-hate relationship with healthcare, hospitals, doctors that goes back to that lack of information and then trust. We don't trust. Because there's a lot of trust that comes with, I'm waiting, I'm a trust that you're gonna give me this heart. I trusted y'all, but it's so culturally deep.
Coming into a community that said, we'll never be organ donors. Oh no, we don't do that. When we die, they go in the ground. We don't trust the process. We had to look at, if I'm not a superstar, I'm not an athlete, I don't have lots of money, will I be treated fairly on the list? And those are the reasons that African Americans in our minority communities was never donors.
People feel if they register to be a donor and if they're involved in an automobile accident and the first responders arrive on the scene, they think that we're more concerned with their organs. That is, we're not going to give them the best care possible. Maybe we'll hold back because we know someone who needs a heart or a lung or a kidney, but that is so far from the truth. When emergency responders arrive on the scene, me being one, the only thing that we are thinking about is saving that life. We never look at a driver's license. We never know that they're a donor. That information is not shared until way down the road.
People say sometime to me in the community, I cannot be an organ donor because I have diabetes. I says, no, you possibly could not be concerning your kidneys, but you have a heart, you have lungs, you have skin, you have bone and tissue.
Organ and tissue donation is incredibly vital to the African American community. Now, we don't actually do transplantation in our organization, but we serve a very vital role on both sides of that continuum. On the donor side, and as a trauma center, some of those injuries may be life-ending, but we really work with those families at that point in time to make sure that they understand the importance of honoring the life of their loved one, and we try to help them to realize that there are ways that they can actually extend that gift of life and celebrate that gift of life if they are a viable organ donor by actually sharing that organ to other members of the community, particularly in the African American community. We are well aware that there are a significantly greater number of African Americans who need organs than the organ donors themselves.
I've been on a transplant list for the last 4 years. I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. I thought that if I was fortunate enough to receive a kidney or receive a donation, that would be something monumental because that's a gift of life. But in the interim, I thought that it would be to my advantage to think in terms of more, what could I do to give back? I had a kind of like a paradox. It was kind of like a situation where my business is actually in the medical transportation. It ended up with me actually transporting people that go to dialysis. And it turned out to be almost of a mission then because I got a chance to actually see what are some of the conditions other than my own that leads to something like this, or even how do you get the awareness out to talk about a transplant. There's some type of lag there, and that lag is always get down to education and information. How do you get that message out?
There is a challenge with us mobilizing consistently. Like we have seen our folks mobilize in recent times with some of the police brutality situations across the country. We mobilized. I'm unsure what it will take for us to mobilize in the same way around this really important issue that affects our community. I mean, how do we mobilize around eye, organ, and tissue transplantation?
There's some people I work with in these communities, in these rural areas, they don't even have a cell phone. I don't want to bypass them. I want to love on them. I want to tell them, even with your challenges in life, you can still be a hero and you can still give the gift of life.
The current narrative is people are misinformed, or people don't care, or culturally you've been told it's a bad thing. And the fact is, when you say no to registering to be a donor, there's a good chance that people die.
The reality is, in our community alone, there are over 10,000 patients waiting on a second chance, many of whom are African Americans. This fuels my commitment to closing the donation gap, knowing that one decision can impact 8 lives.
As a pediatric transplant surgeon, the thought that there are children dying on a wait list is just unacceptable to me. One of the things that I think about, sort of as I wake up in the morning, my first thoughts and my last thoughts of the day are, there's still a lot of great work to do. And a lot of that great work involves eliminating this list and having a zero tolerance for a wait list.
Let's talk about their health. Because your health is your wealth. You can't buy that. And when I begin to talk to these minority faith-based leaders, and they would tell me what they would hear from their parishioners, heart disease, that awful diabetes. And a lot of people in the African American community feel like it's a generational curse, and it does not have to be.
The healthcare initiative within the African American community has lingered to a degree, and a lot of that has just been driven by the lack of education on caring for ourselves.
You got to remember, you got kids out here now that are that could be 4, 5, or 6 that are also giving their grandparents injection shots for diabetes. So it's not, there's no such thing that they don't understand. They know. But if you gave them the talking points or brought them in and gave them an incentive to understand this, they would be the vehicle to help us get it, because they're in the home and they dealing with and they can visually see what some of these habits are.
We've somehow accepted this as our fate, that diabetes and hypertension is just what happens to Black people. The African American community has not fully embraced the fact that these are diseases that are curable.
As I think about the numbers of us who are on dialysis or who need heart transplants, this is another place where we need to change the narrative and really step up and do it now, so that we can begin to affect positive change and healing in our community.
But we have to be activists.
You can actually do things today that are outside of the healthcare space to promote your health. We're talking about things like eating healthily, having an active lifestyle, and prevent the cycle of chronic conditions that lead to the need to have organs. We can actually stop that cycle.
My message to the African American community would be to take power of your own healthcare. You control these things.
You have to make a change. If you don't make a change, then that's why we have this mindset that, oh, we're just gonna live with diabetes. We're just gonna live with hypertension. No, we are not. We're gonna live healthier lifestyles so we can make healthy decisions, and we can make a decision about being organ, eye, and tissues donors at the end of our lives, because if we take care of this body now, it will take care of us later, but it can also take care of you when we transition out of this world. We can share those organs with other individuals in our community. So let's think about it.
It all ties together because we are one large community. And so we need to educate our community, our people, so we can help our people, so we can save our people. We are the ones that are dying because people are not registering to be donors.
People right now can talk to your loved ones, make that decision to be an organ donor, to be a tissue donor, and talk about what that means. It's important that we have those conversations with our family members, with our loved ones, with our healthcare providers to say, what is it that I can do to provide this benefit to my family and to my community members?
And this is the time to begin to have the conversation. Don't wait till you're at the bedside. That's not the place. Have the conversation prior before that. It makes it so much easier on your family, that decision, to say at the end of my life, I will share the gift of life with others for them to live. Because donation is not in anyone's culture. It is a learned behavior.
It is critical to begin thinking differently in the African American community about organ and tissue donation. Consider what your legacy will be. If the answer is yes, know that your decision to be a donor gives hope to thousands of patients waiting for a second chance.
And sometimes you wonder where these organs are going, but they're going to people just like you and I. They're going to the school teacher that you sit in class with. They're going to a firefighter such as myself that responds to your home when you have an emergency. They're going to your pastor at church that preaches to you every Sunday. They're going to people that make a difference in someone's life. I was waiting in the hospital for 6 months for a heart. My doctor told me after the 5th month that if I didn't get a heart soon, I would die. Luckily, we received a heart 2 weeks later. The heart that I received was from a gentleman named Danny. Danny is a person that I never met. He was 39 years old. He lived in Eureka, California. He was a youth pastor. He decided when he got his driver's license that he wanted to be a donor. And when he had children, 2 girls, he told them so they knew. If he hadn't registered to be a donor, I wouldn't be sitting here in this chair right now talking with you.
At 19, I received the diagnosis that I had keratoconus. And in layman's terms, it simply means that your cornea will eventually disintegrate and dissolve and look like a cone. And so very quickly, my vision deteriorated to the point where I was legally blind. So at 26, I had my first cornea transplant in my right eye to restore my vision. And it was life-changing. The day after surgery, I was seeing 20/40. Life-changing. Without it, I would not have had a thriving research career. And so every day, I'm so thankful to my donors, and I try to make sure that I'm living each day to the fullest.
I envision a future where everyone says yes to the donation opportunity. But I also realize that we, as leaders, must earn your trust. As a leader, it is important to me that every family is offered hope through organ and tissue donation. Hope after sometimes senseless tragedies. Hope when all hope is lost.
I'm raised up in the urban community, and we didn't know about donating, your heart, donating this, donating that. We didn't know. I just was saying and praying, Maurice gonna live. The phone rings, so I'm like, okay, man, Maurice must be doing good, and he must be okay. So when I answered the phone, it was the doctor that had spoke to me about donating his organs, and I said, hello, I said, Maurice doing okay? And he said, no, ma'am, your son died. And I said, huh? Your son died, and he hung up. I wished I would have known more about organ tissue donation. To carry something of his inside of you, and it helped you to save somebody's life. Oh my God, that is heaven. That is to the utmost power of living. Maurice could be in several people. My baby. I want to encourage you to please think about, consider donating your organs, your loved ones' organs. Save lives. People say Black lives matter. We say in the health field, Black health matter. Black health does matter to keep a life going. Donate your tissue, donate your organs. I challenge you.
Welcome back. I am June R. Wallace. I am the Community Development Liaison for the Northern California and Modesto region at Donor Network West. That was a very powerful film. We are so honored to have some of the film participants joining us tonight. However, there are so many others who helped bring this film to life. Before I introduce our guests, I want to take a moment to recognize and thank RBA Creative, the California Endowment, Nino Ferguson, Ralph Bell, Mike Freeze, and Dr. Maisha Gray Diggs, Clarence Stanton, and our extra talent featured in the film. Thank you to everyone. Joining me this evening is Janice Whalen, the President and CEO of Donor Network West, Dr. Bo Kelly, Surgical Director, DCI Donor Services, and Board Member of the American Society of Transplantation, Captain Anthony Robinson, Heart Recipient, Arlinda Timmons Love, a mother and advocate for organ, eye, and tissue donation. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to begin this evening discussion with Dr. Bo Kelly. Dr. Kelly, what are some ways people can reduce their risk of diabetes, hypertension, and ultimately kidney failure?
Can you hear me okay, Ms. Wallace?
Yes, sir, I can.
Yes, sir,
Did you hear the question, sir? I can repeat
I caught the tail end of the question, but
well, we're going to catch that tail up here. Dr. Kelly, what are some ways people can reduce their risk of diabetes, hypertension, and ultimately kidney failure?
Kidney failure. And thank you so much for that question. It's an honor to be here. You know, to quote orator and philosopher Dave Chappelle, are taking part in the present. And so I would say that is really take autonomy and control of our nutrition. So much of our risk for these diseases are based in our daily choices. Can you hear me okay? There's a little delay on my end, so I wasn't sure if you could hear me. You know, so much of this is based on choices, and I think we're at a time and a place where, you know, if you look at the national picture, there are roughly 16 million people in the U.S. right now, as an example, with diabetes. The majority of those individuals have diabetes over the age of 45. Majority of the individuals over the age of 45 are. So much of that is based around the two different types of diabetes. And the most prevalent type is the type 2 diabetes that is most prevalent and impacting. You know, again, our big against awareness, prevention, participation in healthcare, advocating for our own healthcare and the healthcare of our loved ones and community. Our big hypertension.
Dr. Kelly, how many blacks are on the organ transplant waiting list on an average? How long are people waiting for organ transplants?
Moving target, I would say that the number to carry is in 3 individuals on the wait list overall. So for all organs, are American. So individuals,
do blacks wait longer?
Close. Blacks are waiting significantly and presenting with significantly higher incidence of disease than all other groups. Can you hear me okay?
Repeat your answer, please.
African Americans are waiting significantly longer than all other ethnic groups on the wait list. They are presenting with more advanced diseases when they are seen and evaluated for transplant, and by the time they actually get on the wait list, there's other ethnic groups. Unfortunately, that is not translated into a shorter wait time on the wait list, but for many types, it's actually translated into a longer wait time.
Why is it so important for Blacks to register to become organ donors?
Reason is the ability to control healthcare. It's invaluable, and as you pointed out in the movie, it's invaluable for us to have the ability to make our own choices, to participate in our healthcare, and that includes the decisions that we make about the end of life care. Many Blacks are less likely to have advanced directives. They're less likely to have spelled out wills. They're less likely to have had conversations with family members and loved ones about what they would want in the end stages of life. And so it's critical to carry forward the decision-making and control for your health care, even through your decisions about end-of-life care. And so I would translate that to a decision about organ donation because it becomes one of the most viable options for us to contribute to our communities. I grew up in the rural South, and it was not uncommon that members of our community cared for each other even after death, and so for us it was really of taking care of each other. So in chat, represents an opportunity to can sign out and sign back in if it's easier. I think the connection is a little rough.
Janice, I'd like to ask you a question. How does it affect the transplant process when the donor and the recipient are of the same ethnic group?
So I'm hearing an echo. So can you guys hear me? Okay. So basically,
we can't hear you.
we know that studies have shown that, when an African American receives a transplant from another African American, that they're less likely to reject that organ. And I know Dr. Kelly could probably give more detail of the science. But that's why it's so important that we make that decision to donate, because like ethnicities do better when they are able to receive a transplant from someone of their same ethnicity. So I think your graft actually asks too as well, and it's just kind of research that it is better for us. Will we ever have a day where we can match things like that? No. But I think we can continue as a community to give life, and to be donors. And the more us that become donors, the better chances it is that someone of our same ethnicity may receive a transplant.
Thank you so much. Anthony Robinson.
Yes, ma'am.
How has the gift of heart transplant changed your life?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I can answer that for the next year, but I know we only have a couple of minutes here. So there are many things that took place after my heart transplant that if I did not get it, if Danny did not register to be a donor, I would not have experienced them. And I'm just going to list a few, just a few. Number one, I got to see my son graduate from Hampton University. I was there at his graduation when he received his degree. Number two, I fell in love and met a young lady and married her, and we're together and happy now. I would not have been able to see that. Number three, just recently, my son called me and told me that I'm going to be a grandfather. Um, I would not have been able to do that. And then other promotions that took place with the fire department, able to go back to full duty, able to do my dream job. I would not have been able to do any of those things. It, I can't even, it's, there's so many things that I'm allowed to do now because someone decided, who I never met, to register to be a donor. And I thank Danny for making that decision.
Thank you so very much. Dr. Kelly, we are seeing hesitation and distrust of the COVID-19 in the Black community. How does this affect other areas of healthcare like organ, eye, and tissue donation?
Well, that's an excellent question. And unfortunately, I think it's part of the same hesitancy that the Black community has to participate in care. And again, it stems back to years and years of experimentation on Blacks, and it stems from a distrust of the healthcare system, as we've discussed. Unfortunately, in the communities that are most impacted by COVID, those same communities are the least likely to be vaccinated for COVID. And unfortunately, that's carried over to concerns with decision organ tissue donation. And so how do we impact that? What we're doing right now by changing the mindset, changing the narrative, and sort of marshaling a new way and a new Black sort of culture moving forward.
Thank you so very much. Janice, why should the Black community trust the organ and tissue process?
Because, first of all, it's really the right thing to do. We are our brother's keeper, and it's important that when we make that decision, we leave a legacy. We leave hope for someone else that is, in need. And there's no difference in how we do the donation process. We are under very strict rules and regulation. And so although in our community we've had some distrust due to some things that happened in the past, we have moved forward. And you have right here in this panel people who are professionals that are a part of the system that allows for an opportunity for everyone to be given that chance. And so we don't come into play unless that you are at that point where you are able to give a second chance at life. So there are a lot of conspiracy theories. I think we spent quite a few years hearing about those conspiracy theories. But donation is very planned out. And I don't think there is a physician in the world that would in any way recover an organ from someone who had not passed on. And so there are a lot of things in place that prevent that from happening. And so we know that there are 110,000 people waiting. That's a fact. And so unless we come together as a community to help one another, it will remain that way. So we have that power to do the right thing and to help someone that is in need.
Thank you very much. Miss Arlinda, knowing what you know now, what do you want other mothers and family members to know about organ, eye, and tissue donation?
What I would like for them to know is, I was just sitting and thinking, if it could only be when one life leaves, you can save another life. There's a lot of violence that goes on in the urban communities. And when that person, like if that person gets shot, like my son did, instead of looking at, oh,
he's gone. I lost him. I lost my son's life. If you donate, you could save other people's lives, several people's lives. I hurt constantly because I didn't make that decision. And I feel like it was the right decision. I just didn't make it. I'm advocating for to mothers that have lost their children or losing their children. I advocate to them. And you were talking about the distrust, going back down in history. I'd like to say reflect to correct, not reflect to neglect. If you reflect to correct all those myths and all that saying, let me find out for myself. Today I had someone ask me, I was calling people asking them if they wanted to take the vaccine. No, they had all these different myths, and I'm like, save your life. So yeah, I would like to tell the mothers, I know it's hard. I know it's painful. I I was thinking about the lives that were lost in my immediate family. I have 8 sisters. One of my sisters lost all 3 of her sons. Another sister lost her son. I lost my son. I have 8 sisters. It's only 5 of us left. If if somebody would have donated their organs, some of their lives could have been saved. And if we would have known or been educated about it, we could have saved some lives. I have a nephew who was 3 years old and he had leukemia. Nobody would donate. He had no donor. So he died. Health is your wealth. But what I like to say is the highest tribute that you can give to your family or your community is to be healthy. And once that transition happens, save a life, save a few lives.
Thank you so very much.
Mhm.
I would like to open this up to the panel. What are some ways that people can spread the message of organ, eye, and tissue donation?
I
Well,
think
I'll
number
go.
one, go right ahead.
Um, I feel that do more presentation. You know, like the people at the different churches. I'm a living testimony. I'm a walking testimony. Do more presentations. Go out into the community. Community is not going to come to you because they're uneducated. But if this was a constant presentation, a constant presence in the community, that would educate them.
Miss Arlinda, I always say meet people where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
Janice, what are some myths that you often hear about organ, eye, and tissue donation?
Well, where do I start? I think there's one that some of you may have heard about, don't get out of the tub, call 911, one of your kidneys has been taken out, and it's my cousin's cousin heard this versus someone that actually experienced this. And, it's a horrible myth because there's a lot of blood testing and different things. You just can't snatch an organ out of someone and put it in a cooler and give it to someone to put in somebody else. There are all these tests, there's blood type matching. So that's not going to happen. But it's one of the myths. And then, something that Anthony pointed out in the film, when you're going to rescue someone from an accident, nobody is caring about donation. They're trying to create a plan to move you from that vehicle or whatever the instrument is that that caused the accident to get you help to save your life. And when all else fails, yes, a medical professional gets in touch with us. But there is that myth that if I sign something on my driver's license, they're not going to help save my life. And that is totally incorrect. And it goes against any medical oath that many people in the medical community take. And so I think that those are things that people need to think about. And as Arlinda said, get the facts for yourself. Know how the process works. And I'd like to tag on to the fact that I think that
we should begin to have conversations. Presentations are not enough. We need to have conversations within our communities, ask questions. Why do you think that? And give factual information back. And it's not in a big assembly, it's in smaller groups where you can have those tough questions and provide answers and give people that information in an environment where it's not threatening. And we don't do enough of that. And that's what I felt was beautiful about this premiere, that it gave us time to be able to spread information that's factual and present it to the community. And so I would encourage everyone to take this conversation back to your families, your friends, your churches, and start having more discussions about this. Your health is truly your wealth. And we've seen that over the last year with the challenges that we faced with the pandemic.
Thank you so very much. How else can you help besides being a donor? How else can we help in our communities?
We can help by, I'm going to tag on what Arlena said. A lot of you don't know, but my picture is in every DMV in California. And so, and it's there because I'm promoting registering to be a donor. And of course, you do that while you're getting your driver's license. That's one way of doing it. And so I get many calls from friends and coworkers, and they're saying, Anthony, I just saw your picture at DMV. And that's my opportunity to say, do you know why it's there? It's there because I want you to register to be a donor. Do you have a dot on your driver's license? And 98% of the times they say, of course I do. Yes, I do. But every now and then they say no. I said, well, you should get it. I hope they do get it. So it's all about sharing the information. And I'll tell you another short story. I was at a fair, and it was a gospel fair. And of course, I was there with Donor Network West trying to get people to register to be donors. And so this one lady came up and said, oh no, I will not register because I don't know what they're going to do with my organs, and I don't want them messing around with my body, and I want to go to heaven fully intact. And so I didn't challenge anything she said. What I did do is share my story with her, how I was a firefighter, how I was raised in San Francisco, how I went to Balboa High School, how I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, how I was in the hospital waiting 6 months for a heart transplant, how a gentleman that I never met named Danny, he registered to be a donor, and he had an aneurysm on Thursday, and I received his heart on Friday. And I'm alive talking to you today at this fair because of a person that I never met. And she just looked at me and she said, give me the paper. And she registered. So I think people just need to hear real life stories to really shake them enough to take away that resistance that they have. And that resistance is not their fault. It's just what's been surrounding them all of their life.
Thank you so much. Any last thoughts, stories, or ideas to share with everyone on how important it is to be a donor?
You know how in your household, when somebody dies in the family, or a friend or something dies, and they say, "Oh, so and so died," you know, they're calling each other, "So and so died." How beautiful it would be if we would say, "Oh, so and so died, but you know, he saved 3 lives." You know, if we were to attach that to, it wouldn't be so bad. "Oh, so and so died. Oh, you know, but he saved 3 lives." You know, to me, that's the beauty. That would be beautiful if it went from house to house. You know, connecting the two.
Connecting to the purpose is what we say at Donor Network West. Anyone else?
I'll just say, June, that I also think that our message is important, but I also think that we should also, as an OPO, give back to the communities that we serve. There's so many things that we can take action on and be a part of. Arlinda mentioned last week when we met to discuss things, that, you know, we have this film and we have clips, we have different things that we can project in public health departments and different places that educate people about donation. So I think we should take advantage of that, but we also should pick projects to help the underserved communities. And so whether it's helping the homeless or, you know, providing care packages and different things, I think that speaks loudly to our community when they see that we're not only asking, but we're giving too as well. And so I'm going to challenge our team to find ways to work harder at giving back to the community, the people that ultimately will be making that decision to help save the life of another.
And Janice, if I just may tag on to you, I'm very proud of this organization because we have been doing that. We did that a few months ago, and we went to the underserved community because, you know, that's near and dear to my heart. And that's what makes the community say Donor Network West is not only supporting organ donation, they're also supporting the needs of our community.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyone else? Thank you for joining us this evening. Please keep this discussion by sharing this important film with your friends and family. The film can be viewed on our YouTube channel at MyDN West. We also ask that you consider registering to become an organ, eye, and tissue donor to help save a life. One donor can save up to 8 lives through organ donation and heal 75 through tissue donation. Should you decide to register to be an organ donor, make sure also to share your decision with your family and friends. For more information, organ and tissue donation, and to register to be an organ donor, visit donornetworkwest.org. Thank you so very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.